Right. I'm going to talk to myself. Okay, so because of your issues with your laptop, and then Papa Kofi, I think you too, you weren't here. So I will record this, post it on YouTube, and then I will give you the link, and then together with some assignments, you do it, and then hopefully we meet tomorrow. So today we'll be looking at data types in JavaScript, right? And then so far we've looked at numbers, we've looked at strings. So, but there are more. There are numbers, there are strings, there are objects, and there are classes. So with the numbers, now when you go to your console, click on it, right? When you are declaring a variable, I've told you you need to use the let, right? So you use let and then the name of your variable, and then again you can't start your variables with numbers, so you can't do something like this, right? You can't do this. This is wrong. Your variables always should start with letters, alphabet, right? So this is totally acceptable. And then you can't put dashes in between your variables. You can't do this. This is also wrong. But you can use an underscore, right, like that, or you can use something we call a camel case. So if your variable name is a combination of more than one word, you join the two words together, but you start with a lowercase variable, as in the case of this small v here, and then the subsequent words, the starting will be a capital letter or alphabet. So you have this over here. And then when you are naming your variables as well, you need to make sure it makes sense, right? So if let's say you are storing a user's age in your variable, you can use something like user age. You can't use uppercase single quotes like this in your variable names. This is also wrong. So what we can do is we can use the underscore, right? So user underscore age. So something like this is acceptable, or you can do user age like that, right? So you can use user age, then you store the user's age here. So something like 23. This is an integer, right? But you can also store decimal numbers, right? So I have 23 here, but I can store integers as well, decimals. So let's say like I said, when you are naming your variables, they should make sense. If they don't make sense, you confuse yourself as to what you're doing. So let's say we are taking a user's height, right? This will definitely contain decimals, so you can do probably 5.2, right? 5.2 like that. That is a decimal. So far you can store integers, you can store decimals, right? So I think pretty much that is what you need to store with numbers. Now with strings, I told you that strings is just a group of words that you put in between quotation mark, double quotes, right? So if you want to store someone's name, you do name equals double quotes, then you store the name of the person here, right, like that. Yeah, so your variable, I chose name for this, but you can choose to use username, right, like that, or user underscore name, or person name, right? Anything that makes sense. Person name, so that later on when you're using the variable, you can see that you stored someone's name like that, person's name. So now when I store this here, I no longer need to I've stored it in person name. So anytime I type person name and press enter, it gives me what I stored, which is this, right? So when you are using a variable, you just use the name that you use without the let, right? So anytime I type this, you see my name will come up, right? So let me clean this and then continue. So let's see if it's still there. Person name, yes, it's still there, right? So apart from strings, now your strings can contain just one letter, right? So you can have let's see, I want a variable called first underscore letter underscore of underscore there underscore alphabet, right? So something like that. And then over here I will store a, right? So you can store just a single letter in your string and it is considered okay. But you see, this in this case the variable name is very long. That is because I want it to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, you confuse yourself. So when I press enter, it stores it, and I can say first letter of the alphabet, right? Alphabet. And then when I type the first letter of the alphabet, it gives me A. Now I can also store, let's say for example, I want to store first name like that, and then I want to store first name as Kojo, right? And then I press enter, it stores it. Then let's your surname equals Kojo menu, right? Then I press enter and then it is stored for me. So when I type first name, it no, it's first without the underscore, right? So it gives me Kojo, and then when I type surname, it gives me menu. Now this is all well and good, but you can also do something we call string concatenation. I told you the other time we talked about this. So when I want to concatenate two strings, what I do is that I can add them, right, with the addition operator. So I can say first name plus surname, and then when I press enter, you see it is giving me Kojo menu all together, right? You have to ensure that both of the variables you are adding are strings. If they are not strings, it will not work. So let's say I have let age equals 50, right? And I want to say first name plus age, right? Plus age. You see it is giving me Kojo 50, but that is wrong because you can't add a string, right? You can't add words to a number. So when you add words to a number in JavaScript, it will turn everything into a word, right? So the Kojo 50 you see here is a string. Anything inside double quotes is a string in JavaScript, right? So have that in mind. So let's say I say let second, right, second age equals 50, right? And I say I want to add age and second age. So when I add it, you see it's giving me 100 because it's adding those two variables together, and both of them are strings, right? So that is how both of them are numbers. So you can add integers as well. You can say let's height equals 10.2, and then let's weight equals 10.3, right? So I can say I want to add weight and plus height plus weight, right? So you see it's giving me 20.5. So whenever you add two numbers, it sums it up. But when you add a number to a string, it will give you a word, right? So now I have first name and surname here, right? But when I added the two, you see it's giving me all of them are put together, but that is not what I want. I want there to be spaces in between the two, right? So I say first name plus surname. Now you see as I'm typing, it highlights this over here. It highlights what it will give to me over here, so that I can see what the output will be. But this is not what I want. I want it so that when I add the two, there should be an empty string, right? So you can see that this is a string, all right, but this time I'm not putting numbers here. You see, when I put a word here, it appears at the bottom here, but that's not what I want. I want there to be spaces, right? You see, anytime I add a space, it gives a space between the two, the kojo and the menu, because those two the spaces are also characters, right? So I just want one space. So when I add a space and I press enter, you see it puts the space there for me, right? So that is how you add two strings together. Now if I add, let's say, last name, right? So I say let last name equals kojo menu, let's say John, right? Last name is John. So now I want to add all three. So I say first name plus last name, right? So it's giving me Kojo John, and I say plus, right? So now it's three now, plus surname, right? So it's giving me Kojo Menu John, but all of them are squished together, right? This is not what I want. I want there to be spaces. So anytime you want spaces, you just add two quotation mark, you put a space there, and then you add a plus, then it will add a space for you, right? It's not difficult at all. So that is how you use strings. So you see it's storing it for me. Now what I've done here, it's not being stored in any variable, right? So you can't reuse the Kojo Menu Jan here that you've combined together. So I can say let full name equals first name plus space plus last name, no, plus surname plus space, and then I do last name, right? So last name. Now you see, okay, I've stored it, but because I've not called the full name yet, you see it is giving me undefined, right? So when I say full name, now it can give me the full name, right? And you can reuse the full name over here, right? So now I want to add, let's say Kojo Menu Jan has a nickname, right? I say nickname equals maybe Kojo 1 or something. So Kojo, no, let's say one Kojo, right? One Kojo is his nickname. So if I want to add a nickname to the full name, all I have to do is full name plus nickname, right? But this time around, you see it's not adding any space between the John and then one Kojo. So I can add a space here, and then it gives me that space in between them, right? So that is how you use strings. I'll talk about it more in the next video.